She walked into the wrong room, slept with the CEO, and disappeared. But he became badly addicted to her. Hi, my beautiful, precious family. Welcome once again to Mr. Peter's Stories, a heartfelt prayer and blessing from our heavenly God, shining down upon each and every one of you with infinite love and grace. No matter what you do or how hard you try in life's journey, remember this truth. Everybody won't love you, and everybody won't hate you. My dearest family, please stop trying to please everyone, for in that endless pursuit, you will end up pleasing no one, not even your own beautiful soul. You are perfect just as you are. My dearest family, I cherish our special moments together when we share these stories. Your engagement warms my heart. When you tell me how the story touched you, when you share your satisfaction, when we play our little games at the start. These precious interactions mean the world to me. Do these wonderful moments bring joy to your heart as they do to mine? Or do you get bored? I would love to hear your thoughts. Let us begin this beautiful journey together, wrapped in love, understanding, and the warm embrace of our caring family. Open your hearts and let the magic of storytelling begin. Chapter 1. A Night of Destiny. The Grand Palace Hotel glittered like a jewel against the night sky, its crystal chandeliers casting golden light across the marble floors. The annual charity gala was in full swing, with soft jazz floating through the air and champagne flowing freely. Junie Sky stood at the edge of the ballroom, observing the whirlwind of silk and diamonds before her. At 45, she carried herself with a grace that made heads turn, her floor-length burgundy gown highlighting the warm undertones of her mahogany skin. She hadn't planned to attend tonight, but her friend Maya had insisted. "You can't hide in your art studio forever," Maya had said, pressing the invitation into her hand. Now, nursing her third glass of champagne, Junie felt a pleasant warmth spreading through her veins, softening the edges of the evening. The string quartet began a slow melody, and couples drifted onto the dance floor. Junie watched them with a mixture of wistfulness and contentment. After her divorce 5 years ago, she'd learned to appreciate solitude, to find strength in independence. Yet sometimes, on nights like these, she allowed herself to wonder about second chances. Several men had approached her throughout the evening, but none held her interest beyond polite conversation. At this stage in her life, Junie knew what she wanted and what she didn't. The young wolves in designer suits, eager to prove themselves, didn't interest her. She'd built her own success, earned her own way, and didn't need anyone's validation. As midnight approached, the champagne began to affect her more than she'd anticipated. The room swayed slightly, and the lights seemed to sparkle with extra intensity. Junie decided it was time to retire to her room. The hotel had offered discounted suites to gala attendees, and she'd treated herself to one night of luxury. Making her way to the elevator, Junie fumbled in her clutch for her room key. The numbers swam before her eyes. Was it 1542 or 1524? She was usually more careful with her drinking, but tonight had been different. Tonight, she'd wanted to lose herself a little, to feel something beyond her carefully controlled routine. The elevator climbed smoothly to the 15th floor, and Junie stepped out, her heels clicking against the plush carpet. The hallway stretched before her, identical doors on either side. She walked slowly, counting room numbers, until she found what she thought was hers. The keycard slipped easily into the lock, and the door opened with a soft click. The suite was dark, illuminated only by city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Junie didn't bother with the lights. She knew the layout of these luxury suites, and the darkness felt welcoming. She slipped off her heels, sighing with relief as her feet sank into the thick carpet. Moving to the window, Junie gazed out at the glittering cityscape. From this height, the world seemed distant, dreamlike. She reached up to unpin her hair, letting the dark waves cascade down her back. The tension of the evening began to melt away as she slowly unzipped her dress, letting it pool at her feet. Standing in her silk slip, Junie felt remarkably free. The champagne had left her feeling warm, slightly reckless. She turned from the window, ready to sink into what she assumed would be an empty bed. But the bed wasn't empty. A figure stirred in the darkness, and Junie's heart stopped. A deep voice, rough with sleep, broke the silence. "You're not the maid." Junie froze, her pulse thundering in her ears. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she made out the form of a man sitting up in the bed. Moonlight caught the planes of his bare chest, highlighting powerful shoulders and arms that spoke of regular workouts rather than vanity. I'm so sorry," Junie stammered, reaching for her dress. "Wrong room. I'll just wait." The voice was commanding but not threatening. The man reached for the bedside lamp, and soft light filled the room. Junie's breath caught in her throat. The man before her was devastating in his masculine beauty, silver threading through dark hair that fell across his forehead, strong jawline shadowed with stubble, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to pierce the dim light. He looked at her with equal appreciation, his gaze traveling slowly from her face down to her silk-clad form. The tension in the room shifted from embarrassment to something else entirely. "I'm Branson," he said softly, making no move to cover himself or leave the bed. "And you are?" Junie knew she should leave, knew this was exactly the kind of situation a woman her age should avoid. But something in his eyes held her, a recognition, a hunger that matched her own. "Junie," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of her racing heart. Branson stood slowly, the sheets falling away to reveal black silk pajama pants riding low on his hips. He moved toward her with the grace of a predator, but his eyes were gentle, questioning. "You're the most beautiful mistake that's ever walked into my room," he said, stopping just inches from her. His scent enveloped her, sandalwood and something uniquely male. Junie's breath quickened. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the pulse beating in his throat. Every instinct told her to run, to apologize again and flee, but the champagne had loosened something inside her, some wild yearning she'd kept carefully locked away. "Maybe it wasn't a mistake," she heard herself say. Branson's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing her lower lip. Junie's eyes fluttered closed at his touch, her body swaying slightly toward him. His other hand found her waist, steadying her. "Look at me," he commanded softly. Junie opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. The desire she saw there made her knees weak. "I want to kiss you," he said, his voice rough. "But if I do, I won't want to stop." Junie's answer was to rise on her tiptoes, pressing her lips to his. The kiss started gentle, questioning, but quickly blazed into something more. Branson's arms wrapped around her, pulling her flush against him. Junie gasped at the contact, her hands sliding up his chest to tangle in his hair. The silk of her slip whispered against his skin as they moved together. Branson's kisses traveled down her neck, pulling soft moans from her throat. His hands roamed her body with a reverence that brought tears to her eyes. It had been so long since anyone had touched her like this, like she was precious and desirable. "You're trembling," he murmured against her skin. "It's been a while," Junie admitted, her voice shaky. Branson pulled back slightly, studying her face. "We can stop." Junie shook her head, reaching up to trace the line of his jaw. "I don't want to stop." His eyes darkened at her words. In one fluid motion, he lifted her into his arms, carrying her to the bed. Junie felt weightless, protected, desired. As he laid her down, the city lights painted patterns across their skin, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. What followed was unlike anything Junie had experienced before. Branson worshipped her body with his hands and mouth, drawing pleasure from her until she cried out his name. He knew exactly how to touch her, where to linger, when to be gentle, and when to be firm. It was as if he could read her body's every signal, anticipating her needs before she knew them herself. When they finally came together, the connection was more than physical. Uni looked into his eyes and saw something that terrified and thrilled her. A recognition, a possibility, a future she hadn't dared to imagine. Hours passed, like minutes, as they explored each other. Sometimes tender, sometimes passionate, but always with an underlying intensity that took Uni's breath away. Between their encounters, they talked in whispers about everything and nothing, careful to avoid last names or specific details, preserving the magic of their anonymous encounter. As dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Uni lay in Branson's arms, listening to his heartbeat. She knew she should feel regret or shame about spending the night with a stranger, but instead she felt alive. More alive than she had in years. Branson's fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "Stay," he murmured, his voice heavy with sleep. Uni pressed a kiss to his chest, memorizing the feel of him, the scent of him, the way his arms felt around her. Then, with a grace born of years of yoga, she slipped from his embrace. "Sleep," she whispered, gathering her clothes. She dressed quickly and silently, her movements precise despite her emotional turmoil. At the door, she turned for one last look. Branson had drifted back to sleep. His powerful form sprawled across the sheets they'd tangled together. Uni's heart clenched at the sight. Part of her wanted to crawl back into his arms, to see where this could lead in the light of day. But she knew better. Magic like this belonged to the night, to moments stolen from reality. In the harsh light of morning, their differences would become apparent, and the spell would break. Better to leave with the memory perfect and untarnished. As Uni closed the door softly behind her, she didn't see Branson's eyes open, didn't see him reach for the space she'd left cold beside him. She didn't know that in that moment something changed in him, that for the first time in his life, the mighty Branson Nash felt his heart slip from his control. She didn't know that he would spend the next 6 months searching for her, that her disappearance would drive him to the edge of obsession. She didn't know that their story was just beginning. Junie Sky simply walked away, carrying the memory of their night like a secret jewel in her heart, never suspecting that fate had much bigger plans for them both. Chapter 2. Haunting Memories. Branson Nash stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city wake beneath him. Dawn painted the skyline in shades of gold and pink, just as it had that morning 2 weeks ago when she'd slipped away. Her scent still lingered in his memory, jasmine and vanilla, mixed with something uniquely her own. He hadn't slept properly since that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, the way moonlight played across her mahogany skin, how her eyes sparkled with mischief and desire, the elegant curve of her neck as she threw her head back in passion. The memory of her soft moans haunted his dreams. His assistant, Margaret, had noticed the change in him. After 20 years of working together, she could read him better than anyone. "You seem different," she'd said yesterday, studying him with concerned eyes. Branson had merely grunted in response, but she was right. He was different. For the first time in his life, Branson Nash, the man who controlled billion-dollar deals with a single signature, felt completely powerless. He had no name to search, no company to investigate, nothing but the memory of her face and the name Junie whispered in the dark. The intercom buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. "Mr. Nash, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Cancel it," he said, surprising himself as much as Margaret. "Sir?" Her voice held a note of disbelief. In 15 years, Branson Nash had never cancelled a board meeting. "Reschedule for next week, and get me Jason from security." "Right away, sir." Branson moved to his desk, pulling out the security footage he'd had copied from the hotel. He'd watched it countless times already. Her arrival at the gala, the graceful way she moved through the crowd, how she'd stopped to help an elderly woman who dropped her clutch. Every gesture, every movement revealed a woman of substance and grace. The footage showed her entering the elevator at 11:47 p.m. The next time she appeared on camera was at 5:13 a.m., slipping out of his room with her heels in hand, her evening gown slightly wrinkled, but her dignity intact. Even in grainy security footage, she took his breath away. A knock at the door announced Jason's arrival. The head of security entered, his tablet ready. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Nash." "The woman from the gala, any progress?" Jason shifted uncomfortably. "We've run facial recognition through every database we have access to. The problem is, most of the cameras only caught her at angles or in low light. The AI needs clearer images for a definitive match." Branson's jaw clenched. "What about the guest list?" "Over 400 attendees, sir. We've eliminated the ones we've identified, but there were multiple +1s and last-minute additions. The charity organization's records aren't exactly thorough." "Keep looking." Branson's tone left no room for argument. Someone must know her. After Jason left, Branson loosened his tie and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch despite the early hour. He never drank before noon. It was one of his many rules. But lately, all his rules seemed meaningless. The scotch burned his throat as he swallowed, reminding him of how her kisses had burned his soul. He'd been with beautiful women before. As one of the city's most eligible bachelors, he'd had no shortage of attention. But none had affected him like this. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at him, not as Branson Nash, the powerful CEO, but just as a man. There had been no calculation in her eyes, no hidden agenda, just pure, honest desire. Or perhaps it was how she'd touched him, confident yet tender, as if she knew her own worth and wasn't afraid to claim what she wanted. Her fingers had traced the scars on his shoulder, legacy of a childhood accident, without pity or disgust. She'd kissed them, making him feel whole in a way he never had before. The memory of their night together played in his mind like a cinematic masterpiece. How she'd stood in the moonlight, her silk slip clinging to curves that would make a saint sin. The way her breath had caught when he first touched her, as if she too felt the electric connection between them. He remembered every detail, the small birthmark on her left hip, the delicate silver anklet she wore, how her nails had dug into his shoulders as pleasure overwhelmed her. But most of all, he remembered the moments between their passionate encounters, when they'd talked in whispers about dreams and fears, carefully dancing around any details that might break the spell. "I collect memories," she'd told him, tracing patterns on his chest. "Little moments of beauty that no one can take away." "Is that what this is?" he'd asked. "Just a memory to collect?" She'd looked at him then, her eyes holding something that made his heart stutter. "This feels more like making history." Now, standing in his office with a glass of scotch in hand, Branson realized she'd been right. That night had made history. His personal history divided into before her and after her. His phone buzzed with messages from board members concerned about the cancelled meeting. Branson ignored them all. Instead, he pulled up the security footage again, freezing on a frame where she smiled at something off camera. Her joy was radiant, infectious even through the grainy image. "Where are you?" he whispered to the frozen frame. The city stretched out below his office, millions of lives intersecting and separating in an endless dance. Somewhere out there, she was living her life, perhaps thinking of him, perhaps trying to forget. The thought of her forgetting made his chest tight. Branson Nash had built his empire on being able to read people, on knowing what they wanted before they knew themselves. But Junie, even her name felt like a prayer on his lips. Junie had left him blind. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't have a plan, didn't have control. All he had was the memory of her taste on his lips, the echo of her laughter in his ears, and an ache in his chest that no amount of success or power could fill. His assistant buzzed again. "Mr. Nash, Mr. Richardson from the London office is on line 1. He says it's urgent." Branson stared at the intercom for a long moment. Once, urgent would have meant dropping everything. Now, "Tell him I'll call back this afternoon." He turned back to the window, watching a pair of birds soar between skyscrapers. "And Margaret?" "Yes, sir?" "Get me the complete guest list from the gala. Not just the official one. I want to know every person who walked through those doors that night. Every staff member, every +1, every last-minute addition." That could take weeks to compile thoroughly. "Then I suggest you start now." After Margaret's acknowledgement, Branson returned to his contemplation of the city. His reflection in the window showed a man he barely recognized. Same expensive suit, same commanding presence, but his eyes held a hunger that hadn't been there before. He'd built his fortune by never taking no for an answer, by finding ways around obstacles that others considered insurmountable. This would be no different. He would find her. The day stretched ahead of him, filled with meetings and decisions that would affect thousands of lives. But his mind kept returning to that night, to the feel of her in his arms, the sound of her voice, the way she'd looked at him as if she saw straight through to his soul. His phone buzzed again, this time with a text from his brother. "Heard you cancelled the board meeting. Everything okay?" Branson smiled slightly. If only they knew. Nothing was okay. Nothing would be okay until he found her again. He picked up the phone to respond, then paused, remembering something she'd said that night. They'd been talking about fate, about the strange paths life takes. "Sometimes," she'd whispered against his skin, "the best things in life find us when we're not looking." But Branson Nash had never been good at waiting for things to find him. He was a man of action, of pursuit, and now he had a new mission, one that mattered more than any business deal or corporate takeover. He would find Junie, the woman who'd walked into the wrong room and straight into his heart. He would find her if he had to search every corner of the city, attend every social event, question every person who might have crossed her path, and when he found her, because failure was not an option, he would make sure she never slipped away again. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting long shadows across his office. Somewhere out there, Junie was going about her day, perhaps thinking of him, perhaps trying to forget. But Branson Nash had been forever changed by one night of passion and connection. He was a man possessed by a memory, haunted by the ghost of a love that had barely begun. And for the first time in his life, all his power, all his wealth, all his influence meant nothing. Because the one thing he wanted most had disappeared with the dawn, leaving nothing but the lingering scent of jasmine and vanilla and the echo of a laugh that haunted his dreams. Chapter 3. The Search. The autumn wind whipped around Branson as he stood on his penthouse balcony, a glass of scotch untouched in his hand. 3 months had passed since that fateful night, yet her memory remained as fresh as morning dew. The city lights twinkled below, each one a possible clue to where Junie might be. His closest friend, Alexander, leaned against the balcony railing beside him. "You're becoming obsessed, Branson. This isn't healthy." Branson's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand. What makes this woman different from all the others who've tried to catch the great Branson Nash?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Branson closed his eyes, remembering how Junie had felt in his arms. "She wasn't trying to catch me. She walked into the wrong room and into my life by accident. There was no agenda, no calculation, just pure connection." Alexander studied his friend's face. In 20 years of friendship, he'd never seen Branson like this. The usually controlled CEO had become a man possessed, attending every social function, scrutinizing every guest list, following every possible lead. "The detective agency called," Alexander said carefully. "They've exhausted all conventional search methods." Branson's laugh was bitter. "Conventional methods won't find her. Junie isn't conventional." The memory of her washed over him again. How she'd quoted obscure poetry while tracing patterns on his chest, the intelligent spark in her eyes when they debated art versus commerce, the way she'd thrown her head back and laughed when he'd told her about his first failed business venture. "Tell me again," Alexander said, "everything you know about her." Branson had recited these details countless times, like a prayer, a mantra. "Her name is Junie. She's in her mid-40s, though she carries herself with timeless grace. Mahogany skin, eyes that shift between amber and honey depending on the light, a small birthmark on her left hip. She wears a silver anklet with tiny bells that chime when she walks. She's educated. We discussed everything from quantum physics to Renaissance art. She mentioned teaching once, but I don't know where or what. That's not much to go on. She collects antique perfume bottles. She speaks French with a slight Canadian accent. She has a scar on her right palm from a childhood accident involving a rose thorn. She prefers red wine to white, jazz to classical, and believes that sunrise is more honest than sunset." Alexander shook his head. "You remember all that from one night?" "I remember everything." Branson's voice was rough with emotion, the way she smelled of jasmine and vanilla. How her pulse quickened when I kissed her neck. The sound of her voice when she whispered my name in the dark. Inside the penthouse, the house staff moved quietly, used to their employer's new melancholy moods. Margaret, his assistant, had compiled a database of every Junie in the city, cross-referenced with every possible detail Branson remembered. So far, none had matched. Alexander mentioned, "The charity organization finally sent over the complete guest list from that night, including last-minute additions and staff." Branson turned sharply. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you need to eat first. You're losing weight, my friend. She wouldn't want this." "You don't know what she'd want," Branson snapped, but immediately regretted his tone. Alexander was right. He was becoming obsessed. They moved inside to the dining room where the staff had laid out an elegant dinner. Branson forced himself to eat, knowing he needed strength for the search ahead. His mind wandered to that night again, to the moment Junie had first stepped into his darkened hotel room. She'd been slightly tipsy, but not drunk, just enough champagne to lower her usual guards. He remembered how she'd stood by the window, unzipping her dress with unconscious sensuality. The sight of her silhouetted against the city lights had taken his breath away. "The list is in your study," Alexander said, pulling Branson from his reverie. "Over 400 names. Margaret has highlighted the ones that might be promising." Branson pushed his plate away, barely tasting the expensive cuisine. "Show me." In his study, the list lay innocent and promising on his mahogany desk. Margaret's neat highlighting marked potential matches, single women, age range 40 to 50, with any connection to art or education. As they pored over the names, Branson's phone buzzed. A text from his brother. "Saw someone today who looked like your mystery woman. Art gallery opening on Madison." Branson's heart leaped. "Get the car," he ordered, already reaching for his coat. Alexander grabbed his arm. "It's almost midnight. The gallery will be closed. Then we'll find out where the owner lives." The old Branson Nash was back. The man who made things happen, who took what he wanted. The drive through the city's nighttime streets was tense with anticipation. Branson's driver, used to these sudden missions, navigated efficiently while Alexander made calls to his contacts in the art world. The gallery was dark when they arrived, but light spilled from the owner's apartment above. Branson was out of the car before it fully stopped, his long strides eating up the sidewalk. The gallery owner, a small woman with silver hair, answered his insistent knocking with surprising calm. Perhaps she was used to desperate men seeking beauty in the night. "The woman at your opening," Branson began without preamble. "Mid-40s, mahogany skin, moves like she's dancing even when standing still." The owner's eyes widened with recognition. "Ah, you mean the collector, lovely woman. She was very interested in our vintage perfume bottle exhibition." Branson's heart thundered. "Her name, please." "I don't remember her giving one. She paid cash for a lovely Art Nouveau piece, said something about it completing her collection." Another dead end. Another ghost of uni that dissolved in the night air. Branson's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly, but the gallery owner noticed. "She mentioned an upcoming exhibition," she offered kindly. "Something about modern interpretations of classical themes. At the Metropolitan, I believe." Hope flickered again in Branson's chest. He thanked the owner, pressing his card into her hand with a request to call if the mysterious collector returned. Back in the car, Alexander watched his friend with concern. "You can't keep doing this, Branson. Running across the city at every possible sighting. Watch me." "What happens when you find her? What if she doesn't want to be found?" The question hit Branson like a physical blow. He'd asked himself the same thing countless times in the dark hours before dawn. Why had Uni left without a word? Why hadn't she left a note, a number, any way to find her? "She felt it too," he said quietly. "What happened between us? It wasn't just physical. She opened up to me in ways that went beyond attraction. There were moments when she'd look at me, and I could see she was just as shocked by our connection as I was." Alexander softened. Then why did she run? Fear, maybe, or wisdom. Branson stared out at the passing city lights. "But I have to know. I have to at least understand why." The car pulled up to his building, but Branson couldn't face the emptiness of his penthouse. "Drop Alexander at home," he instructed his driver, "then take me to the hotel." "Branson!" Alexander started to protest. "I need to be there tonight." Understanding dawned in Alexander's eyes. It was the 3-month anniversary of that night. Of course, Branson would return to where it all began. The Grand Palace Hotel welcomed him with quiet efficiency. The staff had grown used to his visits, though none dared comment on why their city's most powerful CEO frequently spent nights in a hotel room when he owned multiple properties across town. Room 1524 was exactly as it had been that night. Branson had paid handsomely to keep it unchanged, down to the position of the furniture. He stood by the window where Uni had stood, trying to recapture the magic of that moment. Her scent had long since faded from the sheets, but he could still feel her presence. Here, she had kissed him for the first time. There, by the chaise lounge, she had opened up about her fears of growing older in a world obsessed with youth. On that carpet, they had lain tangled together, talking about dreams and regrets. Branson moved to the bed, not bothering to undress. He laid his head on the pillow where Uni had rested, remembering how her hair had spread across it like dark silk. Sleep eluded him, as it often did these days. Instead, he replayed their night together for the 1,000th time, searching for clues he might have missed. She had mentioned a sister who lived abroad, a favorite coffee shop where the barista knew her order by heart, a gallery where she sold her paintings under a pseudonym. Each detail was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained frustratingly incomplete. Uni was like a beautiful ghost, haunting his days and consuming his nights. Dawn began to paint the sky in familiar shades of pink and gold. Branson watched the sunrise, remembering how Uni had claimed it was more honest than sunset. "Sunrise shows us as we really are," she had said. "No masks, no pretenses, just pure, raw truth." He wondered what truth the sunrise would reveal when he finally found her. Would she welcome him or turn away? Would the connection they'd shared survive in daylight, or would it evaporate like morning dew? The city was waking up around him, another day of possibilities beginning. Somewhere out there, Juni was starting her day too. Perhaps she was thinking of him, remembering their night together with the same intensity that plagued him. Branson Nash had built his empire on certainty, on careful calculation and controlled risks. But Juni had shown him a different kind of wealth, the riches of spontaneity, the luxury of letting go, the treasure of genuine connection. As he watched the sun climb higher, Branson made a silent vow. He would find her, not because he was obsessed, though he was, not because his pride was wounded, though it stung, but because in one night, Juni had shown him a version of himself he'd never known existed, a man capable of deep feeling, of vulnerability, of love. Yes, love. He could admit it now, in the honest light of dawn. Branson Nash, the man who had everything, had fallen in love with a woman who'd walked into the wrong room and disappeared like a dream. But dreams, he reminded himself, sometimes came true, and he would move heaven and earth to make this one reality. Chapter 4. Unexpected Reunion. The Riverside Gallery hummed with quiet sophistication as the city's elite gathered for the opening of its newest exhibition. Juni stood before an abstract canvas, wineglass untouched in her hand, trying to focus on the art rather than the memories that had haunted her for the past 4 months. Her friend Maya appeared at her elbow, excitement dancing in her eyes. "You won't believe who just walked in." Juni's heart skipped, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm not interested in gossip tonight." "Oh, but you'll be interested in this." Maya's smile was knowing. Branson Nash himself just arrived. They say he never attends these smaller gallery openings, but lately he's been appearing everywhere. The name hit Juni like a physical blow. She'd seen it in newspapers, on business channels, even overheard it in cafes. Each time, the memory of that night would wash over her with overwhelming intensity. "I need some air," Juni murmured, handing Maya her wineglass. The gallery's balcony offered a quiet escape, and the cool evening breeze helped calm her racing pulse. 4 months. 4 months of trying to forget the feel of his hands on her skin, the sound of his voice in the dark, the way he'd looked at her as if she were the most fascinating creature he'd ever encountered. 4 months of wondering if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life by walking away. The city stretched out before her, a tapestry of lights and shadows. Somewhere in that urban maze was the hotel room where everything had changed. She'd driven past it countless times, tempted to go in, to see if he ever— "Hello, Juni." The voice sent electricity down her spine, deep, commanding, achingly familiar. She didn't need to turn to know who stood behind her, but she did anyway. Branson Nash filled the doorway, more devastating in person than any photograph or memory. His tailored suit couldn't quite hide the fact that he'd lost weight, and there were new lines around his eyes, but his presence was as powerful as ever. "How ... Juni's voice failed her. "Did I find you?" His smile held no warmth. "I've been looking for 4 months, 3 days, and approximately 7 hours. Juni gripped the balcony railing for support. "I didn't think—" "That's obvious." He moved closer, his scent, sandalwood and masculine heat, enveloping her. "You didn't think I'd want to find you. You didn't think what we shared meant anything. You didn't think I'd go mad trying to understand why you disappeared. It was one night," she whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. "Was it?" Branson was close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "One night that changed everything, one night that's haunted every moment since, one night that made everything else in my life feel pale and meaningless." Juni forced herself to meet his gaze. His blue eyes burned with an intensity that made her knees weak. "What do you want from me?" "The truth." His hand came up to cup her cheek, and Junie couldn't help leaning into his touch. Why did you run? The question she'd asked herself 1,000 times. Junie closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Because I was afraid. Of what? Of this. Of feeling something so powerful it terrifies me. Of wanting someone so much it hurts. She opened her eyes, letting him see her vulnerability. Of falling in love with a man who lives in a completely different world than mine. Branson's thumb traced her lower lip, sending shivers through her body. You love me. I barely know you. You know me better than anyone ever has. His voice was rough with emotion. That night, you saw parts of me I've never shown anyone. You understand me in ways that defy explanation. Inside the gallery the party continued, but on the balcony, time seemed to stand still. Junie could hear her heart pounding, could see the pulse beating in Branson's throat. I've imagined this moment so many times, he said softly. Finding you, confronting you, demanding answers. But now that you're here... His free hand slid around her waist, pulling her closer. All I want to do is kiss you. Junie's breath caught. We're in public. I don't care. His lips brushed her temple, her cheek, the corner of her mouth. I've spent 4 months thinking I was going crazy, wondering if I'd imagined how perfect we were together. Tell me you feel it too. You know I do. Junie's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart thundering beneath her palm. But feeling something doesn't make it right. Then what makes it right? His lips were a whisper away from hers. Society's expectations? Our different backgrounds? The fact that we met by accident instead of through proper channels? It's not that simple. It is that simple. Branson's grip tightened possessively. We found each other in a world of millions. We connected on a level that most people never experience. Everything else is just details. Junie wanted to argue, to list all the reasons why this couldn't work, but then his mouth claimed hers, and coherent thought became impossible. The kiss was both familiar and new. The same electricity, the same perfect fit. But now, charged with months of longing and unspoken words, she melted into him, her arms sliding around his neck as his tongue swept into her mouth. Branson kissed her like a man starved, like he was trying to devour every taste, every sensation he'd been denied these past months. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Junie saw that several party guests had gathered at the balcony doors, watching with undisguised interest. The great Branson Nash, locked in a passionate embrace with an unknown woman. Tomorrow's gossip was already writing itself. Your reputation, she began, but Branson cut her off with another brief, fierce kiss. I don't care about my reputation. I care about you. His eyes searched hers. Do you know what these months have been like? Seeing you in every crowd, jumping at every mention of your name, going crazy, wondering where you were, if you were happy, if you ever thought about me. I thought about you every day, Junie admitted. Every time I saw your name in the news, every time I drove past that hotel. I keep the room. The confession tumbled out. I pay to keep it exactly as it was that night. I go there sometimes, trying to recapture the magic of what we shared. Tears spilled down Junie's cheeks. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand what you do to me. Branson wiped her tears away with gentle fingers. I'm not a man who loses control, who lets emotions rule his decisions. But with you, I'm someone else entirely, someone better. Inside the gallery, someone called Branson's name. The real world was intruding on their private moment. Have dinner with me, he said, his tone making it more command than request. Tonight. Now, let me show you that what we have is worth fighting for. Junie looked up at him. This powerful, complex man who'd spent months searching for her. She thought about all the reasons she'd run that morning, all the fears and doubts that had driven her away. But she also thought about how empty these months had been, how pale and meaningless other men seemed in comparison, how no one else's touch made her feel so alive, so seen, so completely herself. "Yes," she whispered. Branson's smile transformed his entire face, erasing the tension and worry of the past months. Without warning, he pulled her into another kiss, this one tender and full of promise. "Don't run away again," he murmured against her lips. "I don't think my heart could take it." Junie wound her fingers in his hair, holding him close. "I'm tired of running." As if on cue, the sky opened up, soft rain beginning to fall. Other guests hurried inside, but Branson and Junie remained on the balcony, lost in each other's eyes. "We should go in," Junie said, but made no move to leave his embrace. "In a minute." Branson's fingers traced her face as if memorizing every detail. "I want to remember you just like this. Rain in your hair, starlight in your eyes, finally back in my arms where you belong." The moment stretched between them, perfect and precious. Junie knew there would be challenges ahead, their different worlds colliding, society's judgment, their own fears and insecurities. But standing there in Branson's arms, with rain falling softly around them and the city lights twinkling below, none of that seemed to matter. For the first time since that fateful night, Junie felt completely, utterly right. The missing piece of her heart had found its way home. Chapter 5. Confrontation. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Junie's art gallery, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors. She moved between the paintings, adjusting frames and checking lighting, trying to keep her hands busy enough to stop their trembling. Last night's encounter with Branson at the exhibition opening had shaken her more than she cared to admit. The gallery wasn't officially open yet, but the soft chime of the doorbell shattered her morning solitude. Junie's heart stopped when she saw who stood in the doorway. Branson Nash filled the space with his presence, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. His eyes locked onto her immediately, intense and determined. "Where have you been?" His voice was rough with emotion. "I've searched for you everywhere." Junie steadied herself against a nearby pedestal, forcing her expression to remain neutral. "I'm sorry, I don't recognize you. Who are you?" The words hit him like physical blows. She watched the color drain from his face, saw the flicker of devastation in his eyes before he masked it. "Don't." His voice was barely a whisper. "Don't pretend you don't remember. That night meant something, Junie. It meant everything." She turned away, unable to bear the raw pain in his expression. "I'm sorry, but I think you have me confused with someone else, and I'm already in a relationship." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Behind her, she heard his sharp intake of breath, followed by heavy silence. "Look at me," he commanded softly. Against her better judgment, Junie turned. Branson had moved closer, close enough that she could smell his familiar scent, sandalwood and something uniquely him that made her heart race. "Tell me you don't remember how we talked until dawn," he said, his voice low and intense. "Tell me you don't remember how perfectly we fit together, how you whispered my name in the dark, how you told me about the scar on your palm from the rose thorn when you were 12. Junie's hand instinctively covered the small scar. "I dot." "Tell me you don't remember sharing your fears about aging in a youth-obsessed world, or how you collect antique perfume bottles, or how you believe sunrise is more honest than sunset." His eyes bore into hers. "Tell me you don't remember any of it, and I'll walk away." Tears threatened to spill from Junie's eyes. Of course she remembered. Every detail of that night was burned into her memory like a brand. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because I haven't slept properly in months." Branson stepped closer, his presence overwhelming her senses. Because I see you in every crowd, hear your laugh in my dreams, feel your touch like a ghost on my skin. Because that one night with you meant more than all the years that came before it. Junie backed away until she hit the wall. Branson followed, placing his hands on either side of her head, caging her in. "Tell me you don't feel it too," he demanded. "Tell me you haven't thought about me every day since then. Tell me you haven't driven past that hotel, wondering if what we shared was real or just a beautiful dream." "It doesn't matter what I feel," Junie's voice cracked. "We're from different worlds, Branson. You're you, and I'm just what?" His fingers traced her cheek, making her shiver. "Just the most fascinating, beautiful, genuine woman I've ever met. Just the person who saw through all my walls and touched my soul. Just the one who's haunted my every waking moment since you disappeared." "Stop," Junie pleaded, but her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch. "I can't stop." Branson's voice was rough with emotion. "I've tried, God knows I've tried, but I can't forget you, Junie. I can't forget how it felt to hold you, to talk with you, to be completely myself with you." His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Junie's eyes fluttered closed. The gesture was so familiar, so achingly intimate, that it broke something inside her. "I was scared," she whispered, finally letting the truth spill out. "What we shared that night, it was too perfect, too intense. I've never felt anything like it, and it terrified me." Branson's forehead pressed against hers. "You think it didn't terrify me? I'm a man who's built his life on control, on careful planning and calculated risks. Then you walked into my room by mistake and turned my whole world upside down." Junie's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart thundering beneath her palm. "What do you want from me?" "Everything," he breathed. "I want every smile, every laugh, every tear. I want your fears and your dreams and your secrets. I want mornings and evenings and all the moments in between. I want you, June, all of you." His words broke the last of her resistance. Junie surged forward, capturing his lips with hers. Branson responded instantly, his kiss desperate and demanding. Months of longing poured into a single moment of connection. His hands tangled in her hair as he deepened the kiss, tasting her, devouring her. Junie moaned into his mouth, her fingers clutching his shoulders for support as her knees weakened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Branson kept her close, as if afraid she might disappear again. "I've missed you," he murmured against her temple. "Missed you so much. It physically hurt." Junie buried her face in his chest, inhaling his familiar scent. "I've missed you too. Every day, every moment. I tried to forget, tried to convince myself it was just one magical night, but... She looked up at him, letting him see the truth in her eyes. "But you got under my skin, Branson Nash. You became part of me that night, and no amount of running could change that." His smile was tender as he wiped away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "No more running. No more running," she promised. "But this won't be easy. Your world, our world," he corrected. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. I've spent too long searching for you to let anything come between us now." The morning sun had climbed higher, casting both of them in golden light. Junie looked at this powerful man who'd turned his world upside down to find her, who'd seen through her pretense and refused to let her hide. "I'm not sorry I walked into the wrong room that night," she said softly. Branson's laugh was rich with joy. "It was the right room, Junie. The exactly right room at exactly the right moment. And this time..." He kissed her again, gentle but possessive. "This time I'm not letting you go." The gallery around them faded into insignificance as they held each other, healing the wounds of their separation with touches and whispered words. Outside, the city continued its busy pace, but inside, time seemed to stand still. Branson's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, but he ignored it, focused entirely on the woman in his arms. Junie smiled against his chest, feeling truly at peace for the first time since that fateful night. "We have a lot to talk about," she said finally. "We have all the time in the world," Branson replied, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. "But first, have dinner with me tonight. Let me court you properly this time. Show you that what we have is worth any challenge." Junie looked up at him, seeing the hope and love shining in his eyes. "Yes," she said simply. His smile was brighter than the morning sun. Without warning, he lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle that made her laugh in surprise. "I love that sound," he said, setting her down but keeping her close. "I've dreamed about your laugh, about your smile, about the way your eyes crinkle at the corners when you're truly happy." Junie reached up to touch his face, tracing the strong line of his jaw. "You really did spend these months memorizing everything about me, didn't you?" "Every detail," he confirmed, "every precious memory of that night. But now—" His eyes darkened with promise. "Now we get to make new memories, create our own story." "Our story," Junie echoed, liking how it sounded. "Our story," Branson agreed, sealing the promise with another kiss. The morning light wrapped around them like a blessing as they stood together in the quiet gallery, two souls who had found each other by chance and refused to let go. Their journey wouldn't be easy, but they would face it together, stronger for the time apart, more determined because of the pain of separation. Sometimes, Junie realized, the wrong room turns out to be exactly right. Chapter 6. Truth and Lies. Moonlight spilled through the windows of Junie's apartment as she paced the living room, her silk robe swishing softly with each step. Her best friend Maya sat on the couch, watching her with knowing eyes. "You have to tell him the truth," Maya said softly. "He deserves to know why you've been pushing him away." Junie paused by the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. The city lights blurred through her unshed tears. "How do I tell him that I've been lying, that every moment I pretended not to know him tore my heart apart?" "Start from the beginning," Maya suggested. "Tell him about the letters." Junie's hand instinctively went to the drawer where she kept them. 5 handwritten letters she'd never sent to Branson, each one explaining why she'd left that morning, why she couldn't stay, why their worlds were too different to merge. The sound of a car pulling up outside made her heart stop. Through the window, she watched Branson emerge from his sleek black vehicle, his powerful frame unmistakable even from 6 stories up. He moved with purpose, like a man on a mission. "He's here," Junie whispered, panic rising in her throat. Maya stood, gathering her things. "Good. It's time you both stopped running." She hugged Junie tightly. "Remember what you told me about that night? How for the first time in years you felt truly alive?" Junie nodded, unable to speak. "Hold on to that feeling," Maya advised, heading for the door. "The truth might hurt for a moment, but lies will destroy you both." As Maya left through the service entrance, the main door buzzed. Junie's hands trembled as she pressed the intercom. "Yes, let me up." Branson's voice was raw with emotion. "Your friend Maya told me everything." Junie's blood ran cold. The intercom crackled with static, waiting for her response. After what felt like eternity, she pressed the button to unlock the building's entrance. Each click of Branson's footsteps up the stairs echoed in her ears like thunderclaps. When he finally knocked, the sound seemed to reverberate through her entire body. Junie opened the door slowly, revealing Branson in all his devastating glory. His tie was loosened, hair slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. In his left hand, he held a familiar envelope. "Maya gave me this," he said without preamble, holding up the letter. "Said it was the first one you wrote after that night. Said there were others." Junie stepped back, allowing him to enter. "I never meant for you to see those, obviously." His voice was tight with controlled emotion. "Just like you never meant for me to find out that you've been thinking about me every day since you left, that you've been following my company's progress, attending events you knew I'd be at, torturing yourself with glimpses of me while pretending I meant nothing to you." He moved closer, and Junie retreated until her back hit the wall. Branson placed his hands on either side of her head, caging her in with his body. "Why?" he demanded softly. "Why put us both through this pain?" The scent of him, sandalwood and male heat, made her dizzy with memories. "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of this," Junie gestured between them, "of how intense it is, how all-consuming, of losing myself in you." Branson's laugh was bitter. "And pushing me away was better? Pretending you didn't know me, didn't remember our night together?" "I remember everything," Junie whispered, her voice breaking. "Every touch, every kiss, every word we spoke. I remember how you held me like I was precious, how you listened to my dreams and fears, how you made me feel more alive in one night than I had in years." His expression softened slightly. "Then why run?" Junie closed her eyes, unable to bear the pain in his gaze. "Because men like you don't end up with women like me, because fairy tales don't last, because I'd rather have one perfect memory than watch it all fall apart. Look at me." His command was gentle but firm. She opened her eyes, finding his face inches from hers. "You don't get to decide what I want," he said, each word deliberate. "You don't get to protect me from feelings you think I shouldn't have, and you definitely don't get to tell me that what we shared was just a fairy tale." His thumb traced her lower lip, making her shiver. "Do you know what these months have been like? Seeing you at events, watching you pretend I was a stranger, feeling my heart break every time you turned away." "I'm sorry," Junie whispered. "Sorry isn't enough." His eyes burned into hers. "I need the truth. All of it." Junie took a shaky breath. "The truth is, I've loved you since that night. Not just because of how you made me feel physically, but because of how you saw me, really saw me. You listened to my dreams about opening my own gallery, encouraged me to believe in my art again. You shared parts of yourself I know you've never shown anyone else." Branson's other hand came up to cup her face. "Keep going." "The truth is, leaving you that morning was the hardest thing I've ever done. I've relived that moment 1,000 times, imagined staying, imagined letting myself believe in us. But I was scared. Scared of the intensity of my feelings, scared of the differences in our worlds, scared of not being enough." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but Branson wiped them away with gentle fingers. "What else?" "I wrote you letters I never sent, went to places I knew you'd be just to glimpse you, ached every time I saw your name in the news. And when you found me, when you refused to let me hide," a sob escaped her. "It took everything I had not to fall into your arms and confess everything." Branson's forehead pressed against hers. "My turn for truth?" Junie nodded, unable to speak. "I've loved you since you quoted obscure poetry while tracing patterns on my chest. I've loved you through months of searching, through the pain of your rejection, through every moment you pretended not to know me. I've loved you with an intensity that terrified my friends and changed who I am as a person." His hand slid down to her waist, pulling her closer. "I've loved you through board meetings and business deals, through sleepless nights and empty mornings. I've loved you so completely that nothing else in my life makes sense without you." Junie's hands came up to clutch his shoulders. "Branson, I'm not finished." His voice was rough with emotion. "You think our worlds are too different. My world has been empty without you in it. You think you're not enough? You're everything, everything I never knew I needed, everything I can't live without." He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching hers. "So here's my truth, Junie Sky. I love you. I love your strength and your fear, your passion and your doubts. I love how you see beauty in broken things, how you light up when talking about art, how you believe in second chances, even while running from your own. Junie's heart felt too big for her chest. "I love you too," she whispered. "So much it terrifies me." "Good." Branson's smile was tender. "Be terrified with me. Be uncertain with me. Be real with me. Just don't shut me out again." Their lips met in a kiss that tasted of tears and truth, of pain released and love reclaimed. Junie wound her arms around his neck as Branson pulled her impossibly closer, pouring months of longing into a single embrace. When they finally parted, both breathing heavily, Branson rested his forehead against hers. "No more running?" "No more running," Junie promised. "No more lies, no more pretending." "Good." His smile held a hint of mischief. "Because I have plans for us, Junie Sky. Big plans that involve making up for lost time and creating a future together that's better than any fairy tale." Junie laughed through her tears. "I like the sound of that." Outside, the city hummed with life, but in Junie's apartment time seemed to stand still. Two hearts that had found each other by chance, lost each other through fear and found their way back through love, finally beat in perfect synchronization. The truth had set them free, and this time they would write their own story together. Chapter 7. Fighting for Love. The evening shadows lengthened across Junie's gallery as she prepared for the most important exhibition of her career. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the lighting on her centerpiece, a massive canvas depicting the moment she first saw Branson in the moonlit hotel room. Maya burst through the door, her face tense. "Junie, you need to see this." She thrust a tablet into Junie's hands. The business news headline made her blood run cold. "Nash Industries under investigation. CEO's romance clouds judgment." The article detailed accusations of financial misconduct, suggesting that Junie was part of an elaborate scheme to destabilize Nash Industries. Melissa's father had launched a full-scale attack, using their relationship as ammunition. "They're trying to destroy him," Junie whispered, her heart racing, "using me as the weapon." The gallery door chimed. Junie looked up to see Branson striding toward her, his face etched with concern. "You've seen the news." She moved into his arms instantly. "I'm so sorry. This is all because of me." "No." His voice was firm as he tilted her chin up. "This is because they underestimate the power of real love. They think they can use our relationship against me? Let them try." Maya cleared her throat. "They're not just attacking the business. Look at the society pages." The gossip columns were vicious, painting Junie as a gold digger, suggesting she had orchestrated their meeting that night. Some even claimed she had been working with Melissa's family all along. "My exhibition opens tomorrow," Junie said quietly. "The centerpiece is our story, how we met, how we fell in love. Maybe we should postpone." "Absolutely not." Branson's eyes blazed with determination. "We're not hiding our love. In fact—" A slow smile spread across his face. "I have a better idea." He pulled out his phone, making rapid calls. Within hours, the gallery was transformed. Additional security arrived, along with a team of PR professionals and legal experts. "Tomorrow night," Branson explained, "instead of just your exhibition, we're holding a press conference. We're going to tell our story, the full story, on our terms." Junie's heart swelled with love for this man who refused to let anyone diminish what they shared. "Are you sure?" "It could make things worse for the company." "The company means nothing without you." He gathered her close. "Let them see how we really met, how we fell in love. Let them witness what true love looks like, not their manipulated version, but our beautiful reality." They worked through the night, preparing. Junie's paintings told their story eloquently, from the magical first meeting to their current battle. Each canvas captured not just events, but emotions, the depth of their connection, the power of their love. As dawn approached, Branson found Uni standing before her favorite piece, a painting of the moment she'd pretended not to know him when he'd seen through her fears. "I was so scared that day," she admitted, "scared of losing myself in loving you. And now—" his arms encircled her from behind. "Now I know that loving you makes me more myself than I've ever been." She turned in his embrace. "You don't try to change me or control me. You love every part of me, my art, my independence, my fears and dreams." Their kiss was tender yet passionate, a perfect blend of love and strength. As they parted, Branson pressed something into her hand, a small velvet box. Inside lay an exquisite sapphire ring. "This belonged to my grandmother," he explained softly. "She gave it to me the day I told her about you, said it should go to a woman who knows her own worth and fights for real love." Uni's eyes filled with tears as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "It's beautiful. Like you." His voice was rough with emotion. "Like our love. And tomorrow, we show the world exactly what that means." The exhibition opening was packed, not just with art lovers, but with media, business leaders, and society's elite. Uni stood beside Branson as he addressed the crowd. "Many of you came here expecting scandal," he began. "Instead, let me tell you about the night that changed my life forever, about a woman who walked into the wrong room and straight into my heart." His words painted their love story as beautifully as Juni's canvases. He spoke of connection, of finding true partnership, of love that transcends social boundaries and business machinations. "Look around you," he gestured to the artwork. "This is our story, told through the eyes of an incredible artist who sees beauty in truth. Every brushstroke speaks of real love, honest emotion, genuine connection." Uni stepped forward then, her voice clear and strong. "I've been accused of orchestrating our meeting, of having ulterior motives. The truth is simpler and more magical. I got lost after too much champagne and found my destiny instead." The crowd laughed softly at her honesty. Even the most cynical reporters seemed moved by the genuine love between them. "To those who would use our love as a weapon," Branson continued, his arm tight around Uni's waist, "you don't understand what you're dealing with. This isn't some society romance or business arrangement. This is soul-deep love between two people who recognize themselves in each other." Melissa's father stood at the back of the gallery, his face unreadable. But as Uni and Branson's words filled the space, something in his expression shifted. After the speeches, he approached them privately. "I owe you both an apology," he said gruffly. "Watching you together, seeing these paintings, I was wrong about your relationship." Uni squeezed Branson's hand as he responded. "Thank you. Now shall we discuss turning this attack into a partnership that benefits everyone?" The rest of the evening passed in a blur of triumph. Uni's exhibition was hailed as a masterpiece of emotional storytelling. The business press began reporting on the potential positive merger between Nash Industries and Melissa's family empire. But most importantly, their love had been witnessed and celebrated in its pure, powerful truth. No more shadows, no more doubts, no more attacks. Later that night, alone in their penthouse, Uni and Branson stood wrapped in each other's arms, watching the city lights twinkle. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest. "For what?" "For fighting for us, for turning their attack into a triumph, for loving me so completely and openly." His kiss was tender, yet passionate, always, in every way, forever. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged stronger. Their love story, once used as a weapon against them, had become their greatest strength. And in the end, that's what real love does. It transforms challenges into triumphs, fears into courage, and two separate hearts into one unbreakable bond. Chapter 8. Past Shadows. Thunder rolled across the city as Uni paced the marble floors of Branson's family estate. Stephanie had invited them for the annual Nash family reunion, and now Junie found herself surrounded by generations of old money and judging eyes. Branson's hand at her waist was warm and reassuring as he guided her through introductions. Each relative seemed to carry the weight of centuries of tradition in their gaze. Yet it wasn't their scrutiny that made Junie's heart race. It was the portrait hanging above the grand staircase. Branson's late wife, Caroline, watched over the gathering with painted eyes that seemed to follow Junie's every move. She had been everything Junie wasn't, born to wealth, groomed for society, the perfect match on paper. "Don't let it bother you," Stephanie whispered, appearing at Junie's side. "That portrait hasn't brought joy to this house in years." But before Junie could respond, a sharp voice cut through the murmur of conversation. "Well, if it isn't my dear brother's latest acquisition." Stetson emerged from the shadows, his resemblance to Branson striking but twisted by bitterness. The prodigal son who'd been passed over for control of the family empire, who'd disappeared after Caroline's death 5 years ago. "Stetson!" Branson's voice was ice. "I wasn't aware you'd be joining us. How could I miss meeting the woman who's captured my brother's heart?" Stetson's smile was razor-sharp. "Though I must say she's quite different from dear Caroline." Junie felt Branson tense beside her. The room had gone silent, watching the brothers face off. "That's enough, Stetson." Stephanie stepped forward, but Stetson wasn't finished. "Does she know, brother? About what really happened to Caroline? About why you buried yourself in work afterward, became the cold, ruthless businessman everyone fears?" Junie's heart pounded as she watched color drain from Branson's face. This was a pain she hadn't known existed, a shadow from his past she hadn't yet understood. "This isn't the time or place," Branson growled. "It's exactly the time." Stetson turned to June. "Has he told you how Caroline died? How she was driving to confront him about his endless working hours, his emotional distance, how the accident happened less than a mile from his office?" "Stop!" Branson's voice shook with rage and grief. But Junie didn't need to hear more. She could see the truth in Branson's eyes, the guilt he'd carried, the walls he'd built, the reason he'd been so resistant to love before her. Without a word, she took his hand and led him away from the shocked whispers and prying eyes. Up the grand staircase, past Caroline's portrait, into the quiet of his old study. "Talk to me," she said softly, watching him pace like a caged tiger. "I should have told you." His voice was rough with emotion. "About Caroline, about how I failed her." "You didn't fail her." Junie moved to him, taking his face in her hands. "You were young, driven, trying to prove yourself worthy of the Nash legacy. You made mistakes, yes, but you've carried this guilt long enough." Tears filled his eyes as he pulled her close. "When I lost her, I swore I'd never love again, never risk that kind of pain. Then you walked into my room that night, and everything changed. Because we were meant to find each other," Junie whispered against his chest. "Not to replace what you lost, but to build something new, something real." Their kiss tasted of tears and truth, of past pain and future promise. When they parted, Branson pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you," he said roughly, "more deeply, more completely than I've ever loved anyone. You don't try to compete with ghosts or fit into some society mold. You just love me. All of me. Even the broken parts." A soft knock interrupted them. Stephanie entered, her face gentle with understanding. "Stetson has left," she said, "and he won't be welcome back until he learns to respect the healing power of love." She moved to the window, gazing out at the storm. Caroline was a lovely girl, but she and Branson were too young, too bound by expectations. "What you two have," she turned to face them. "This is real love, the kind that transforms pain into growth, fear into strength." Junie felt Branson relax slightly beside her. "Thank you, grandmother." "Now," Stephanie's eyes twinkled. Shall we give those stuffy relatives something to really gossip about? I believe it's time to show them the real future of the Nash family. Together they descended the grand staircase. Junie felt the weight of Caroline's portrait, but it no longer seemed threatening. This wasn't about replacing the past. It was about embracing a future built on genuine love and understanding. The family gathering had shifted in their absence. Where there had been judgment, now there was curiosity. Where there had been whispers, now there was genuine interest in the woman who had helped Branson Nash find joy again. Junie shared stories of their meeting, their journey, their love that defied society's expectations. She spoke with genuine warmth about her art, her independence, her belief in second chances. As the storm outside began to clear, so did the shadows in Branson's eyes. He watched Junie charm his family with her authentic self, no pretense or performance needed. Later that night, in the privacy of their suite, Junie held him close as he finally shared the full story of his past. The pressures, the mistakes, the grief he'd carried alone for so long. "You're not alone anymore," she promised, kissing away his tears. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Branson's kiss was fierce with gratitude and love. "You've given me back my heart," he whispered, "not by trying to heal the past, but by showing me how beautiful the future can be." Their love-making that night was tender yet passionate, healing yet exciting. Every touch spoke of understanding, every kiss promised forever. As dawn painted the sky in shades of hope, they stood together at the window. The portrait of Caroline watched over them, but now it felt like a blessing rather than a shadow. "Ready to face another day of Nash family drama?" Junie teased gently. Branson pulled her close, his smile reaching his eyes. "With you by my side, I'm ready for anything." They had faced the ghosts of his past and emerged stronger. Their love wasn't about forgetting or replacing. It was about growing, healing, building something new and beautiful from the ashes of past pain. And in that understanding, they found yet another layer of their perfect match. Two souls who could face any shadow together, knowing their love would always light the way forward. Chapter 9. Taking Chances. The sunset painted Branson's private beach house in shades of gold and rose as Junie stood on the balcony, watching waves crash against the shore. This weekend getaway had been Branson's idea, a chance to escape the city's prying eyes and reconnect after the drama with Melissa at the gala. "Penny for your thoughts?" Branson's voice was warm against her ear as he wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close. Junie leaned into his embrace, drawing strength from his solid presence. "I was thinking about my first marriage," she admitted quietly. Branson stilled, but didn't pull away. They hadn't discussed her past marriage much. It was a wound Junie usually kept carefully bandaged. "Tell me," he encouraged softly. Junie took a deep breath, watching the waves. "I was young, 24. He was older, successful, charming. Everyone said we were perfect together." She laughed bitterly. "What they really meant was that I looked good on his arm at social functions." Branson's arms tightened protectively around her. "What happened?" "I disappeared," Junie whispered. "Bit by bit, day by day. My art became a hobby he tolerated. My dreams became silly fancies he indulged. My voice became softer and softer until I could barely hear it myself." She turned in his arms, needing to see his face. "That's why I ran that first morning, why I kept running, because what we had was so intense, so all-consuming. I was afraid of losing myself again." Branson's eyes were fierce with emotion as he cupped her face. "You could never disappear with me, Junie. Your strength, your passion, your independence, they're what made me fall in love with you." "I know that now." She reached up to trace his jaw. "But sometimes old fears are hard to shake." Then we'll shake them together. He kissed her forehead tenderly. Tell me more. Help me understand. Junie let him lead her to the comfortable lounger on the balcony. They settled together, her back against his chest, his arms secure around her. We were married for 3 years, she continued. On paper, everything was perfect. Beautiful house, expensive cars, glamorous parties. But inside, she shuddered at the memory. Inside, I was dying. My art gathered dust. My friends drifted away. I became this perfect, polished shell of myself. How did you find the strength to leave? Branson's voice was rough with emotion. My sister Maya, yes, the same Maya who's now my best friend, she saw what was happening. She showed up one day with a blank canvas and my old paints. Junie smiled at the memory. She said, "Show me who you really are." I stared at that canvas for hours, and when I finally started painting, it was like waking up from a long nightmare. Branson's hands stroked soothing patterns on her arms. What did you paint? Freedom. Junie closed her eyes, remembering. A woman breaking free from chains, her wings spreading wide. He hated it, said it was disturbing. That's when I knew I had to leave. And now? Branson's question was gentle. What would you paint to show who you are now? Junie turned to face him, her eyes shining. Love, but not the soft, sweet kind. The kind that burns and challenges and makes you grow. The kind that sees all of you and demands you be more, not less. His kiss was tender, understanding. That's what you are to me, you know. Not an accessory or a trophy, but a force of nature that swept into my life and made everything brighter, more real. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower. The evening air was cool, but Junie felt warm in Branson's embrace. I want to show you something, he said finally, helping her up. Come with me. He led her through the beach house to a room she hadn't noticed before. When he opened the door, Junie gasped. It was an art studio, complete with easels, canvases, and every type of paint and brush she could imagine. Large windows offered perfect natural light, and a comfortable couch suggested long hours of creative contemplation. When did you... Junie's voice trailed off as she took in the space. I had it set up last week. Branson watched her face carefully. This house is as much yours as mine now. I want you to have a space that's completely your own, where you can create without constraints. Tears spilled down Junie's cheeks as she explored the studio. Everything was top quality, but chosen with clear understanding of an artist's needs. This wasn't a hobby room. It was a serious workspace. You understand, she whispered, turning to him. You really understand. Branson gathered her in his arms. I understand that your art isn't just what you do, it's who you are. I understand that loving you means loving all of you, including the parts that need space and solitude to create. Junie kissed him with all the emotion welling up in her heart. This man, this powerful, complex man, had seen her deepest fears, and instead of trying to fix them or dismiss them, he'd created a space where she could work through them herself. Paint with me, she said impulsively. Branson laughed. I can barely draw a straight line. That's not what art is about. Junie pulled him toward the easels. It's about expressing what's in your heart, even if it's messy or imperfect. They spent the next hour painting together, laughing at Branson's attempts and getting paint everywhere. Junie found herself watching him more than her own canvas. The way his brow furrowed in concentration, how his hands moved with the same precision he brought to everything, the childlike joy when he managed to create something recognizable. There, he said finally, stepping back from his canvas. It's supposed to be us dancing at the gala. Junie tilted her head, studying the abstract swirls of color. I can see it, she said softly. The movement, the emotion. It's all there. What about yours? Branson moved to look at her canvas. Uni had painted their first meeting, the moonlit hotel room. Two souls connecting in the darkness, but she'd painted it from memory, focusing on the emotions rather than the physical details. "It's beautiful." Branson's voice was hushed. "You've captured exactly how it felt, like the whole world had disappeared except for us." "That's how it still feels," Uni admitted, leaning back against him. "Every time you look at me, every time you touch me, the world narrows down to just us." Branson turned her in his arms, his eyes intense. "Move in with me." The request caught her off guard. "What?" "Not to my penthouse, unless you want to. We can find a new place together, somewhere that can be truly ours. Somewhere with space for your art and my work. But most importantly, space for us to grow together." Uni studied his face, seeing the sincerity there. This wasn't about possession or control. It was about creating something new together. "Yes," she whispered. His smile was brilliant as he lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the paint-splattered studio. When he set her down, his expression turned serious. "I want you to know something," he said, holding her close. "I will never try to change you or dim your light, your strength, your passion, your independence. They're not threats to my love. They're the reasons for it." Junie wound her arms around his neck, paint-stained fingers threading through his hair. "And I want you to know that I'm not running anymore. What we have, it's worth fighting for, worth being brave for." Their kiss tasted of paint and promises, of past wounds healed and future dreams taking flight. Outside, the stars began to appear, witnessing their pledge to build something new together. Not his world or her world, but their world, created with love and understanding and the courage to be fully themselves. Later that night, as they lay tangled in sheets and moonlight, Uni traced paint smudges on Branson's chest. "Thank you," she murmured. "For what?" "For seeing me, really seeing me, for creating space for all of me, even the scared and broken parts." Branson kissed her hair. "Thank you for trusting me with those parts, for being brave enough to love again, to take chances again." Uni smiled against his skin. "We're quite a pair, aren't we? The ruthless businessman who paints love stories, and the independent artist who's learning to let someone in." "We're perfect," Branson said simply. "Not because we're flawless, but because we're perfectly matched in all our beautiful imperfections." The night wrapped around them like a blanket as they drifted to sleep. Two souls who had found in each other not just love, but the courage to be fully, authentically themselves. Their future stretched out before them, a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of their combined dreams. Chapter 10. Storm Breaking. The morning brought chaos to Nash Industries. Melissa's father had launched his takeover bid, and the business world was buzzing with speculation. But in Branson's office, a different kind of tension filled the air. Junie paced near the windows, her phone clutched in her hand. The text from her daughter Sophia glowed on the screen. "Mom, what's going on? The news is saying terrible things about you and him." Branson watched her from his desk, his face etched with concern. "Your children, they're worried." Junie's voice trembled slightly. "They've seen the headlines, the accusations. They think I'm being used somehow." Before Branson could respond, his intercom buzzed. "Mr. Nash, the board is assembled. They're demanding immediate action regarding the takeover bid." He stood, straightening his tie. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." Moving to Uni, he took her hands in his. "We'll face all of this together. Your family, my company, our future." "How?" Uni searched his face. "Your world is crumbling because of me." "No." His voice was fierce with conviction. "My world finally makes sense because of you. Everything else is just noise." The intercom buzzed again, more urgently, but something had changed in Branson's expression. A determination, a clarity. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Junie blinked. "What?" "Marry me. Not next year, not when things settle down. Now today." Branson, listen to me. His hands framed her face. I've spent my life building this empire, thinking it was what gave me worth. But facing losing everything, I've realized something. The only thing I can't bear to lose is you. Junie's heart raced. What about the takeover? The board. There's a clause in the company charter. Any hostile takeover attempts are frozen for 90 days following the CEO's marriage. His smile was both tender and triumphant. But that's not why I'm asking. I'm asking because I love you, because I want to build a life with you, because I want to face whatever comes next as your husband. Tears spilled down Junie's cheeks. My children. We'll be part of our family. We'll face their doubts together, show them what real love looks like. He wiped away her tears with gentle thumbs. What do you say? Will you marry me today? Junie looked into his eyes, seeing all the love and promise there. Yes, she whispered. What followed was a whirlwind of activity. Branson called Judge Thompson, while Junie texted Sophia and Adrian. I'm getting married today. Please come. I want you to understand why he's different, why this love is real. Stephanie arrived with rings, not Melissa's claimed heirlooms, but something more precious. The simple gold bands Branson's grandparents had worn, symbols of a love that defied society's expectations. The office was transformed as sunset painted the sky in shades of gold. Junie wore a cream silk dress Stephanie had brought, while Branson remained in his perfectly tailored suit. Just before the ceremony, Junie's phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. On our way. Adrian's driving. We want to meet the man who's made you glow like this. Happy tears blurred Junie's vision as Judge Thompson began the ceremony. Branson's vows were powerful in their simplicity. I promise to love you completely, support you endlessly, and fight for our happiness always. You walked into my life by chance, but I choose you by love, today and every day. Junie's voice shook with emotion as she responded. I promise to love you truly, stand by you faithfully, and face whatever comes together. You saw through all my walls and loved me anyway. I choose you, trust you, love you with all that I am. As they exchanged rings, the elevator chimed. Sophia and Adrian rushed in, slightly breathless, just in time to hear Judge Thompson pronounce them husband and wife. Branson's kiss was tender yet passionate, sealing their vows with love. When they parted, he kept her close as they turned to face her children. I know this seems sudden, Junie began, but Sophia interrupted, moving forward to hug her mother. We saw the press conference, she said softly, saw how he defended you, how he looks at you. Nobody's ever looked at you like that before. Adrian stepped forward, studying Branson with protective intensity. You'll take care of her? With everything I am, Branson promised. Your mother is the most precious gift in my life. Stephanie watched with tears in her eyes as the two families began to merge. Junie's children asking questions, sharing stories, beginning to understand the depth of love that had brought their mother back to life. The intercom buzzed again. Mr. Nash, Melissa's father is demanding a response to the takeover bid. Branson smiled, holding Junie close. Tell him he'll have to wait 90 days. I'm celebrating my wedding. Melissa's fury arrived by text moments later, but it held no power over them. They had found something stronger than business maneuvers or social expectations. They had found real, transformative love. Later that night, in the privacy of their penthouse, Junie and Branson held each other close. Happy, he murmured against her hair, beyond words. She traced his face with gentle fingers. My children accepting us, your grandmother's blessing, our love saving everything. It's like a dream. Better than dreams, Branson kissed her softly. This is real. This is forever. They had faced the storm together and emerged stronger. Their impromptu wedding hadn't just saved his company, it had created a new family, a new future, a new kind of love story. As moonlight painted their world in silver, Junie and Branson began their life together, knowing that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a single step, a leap of faith, a love strong enough to defy the world. Chapter 11. Hearts United. 2 days after their impromptu wedding, Junie woke to find Branson standing by their bedroom window, silhouetted against the dawn. He held a letter in his hands, his shoulders tense with emotion. "What is it?" she asked softly, moving to embrace him from behind. "A letter from my mother," he turned, pulling her close. "Written before she died, to be delivered when I found true love." His voice rough with feeling, he read, "My dearest son, if you're reading this, you've finally opened your heart to real love. Remember that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in moments of genuine connection." Junie's heart swelled as Branson shared his mother's words of wisdom and blessing. This vulnerability, this sharing of intimate family memories, marked a new depth in their relationship. "She would have loved you," he whispered, kissing Junie's temple. "Not for your social status or connections, but for how you've brought light back into my life." Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Stephanie entered, her face alight with excitement. "The morning papers," she announced, spreading them across the bed. "Look how they're covering your wedding." Instead of scandal or business analysis, the headlines celebrated their love story. "Nash Industries CEO chooses love over power," declared one. "Modern romance triumphs over corporate games," proclaimed another. But it was the society page that brought tears to Junie's eyes. Someone had captured the moment her children arrived at the wedding, the joy on Sophia's face, the protective concern in Adrian's eyes softening as he watched Branson kiss his new bride. "We did it differently," Junie mused, tracing the photo. "No grand ceremony, no months of planning, just pure love and family coming together." "Speaking of family," Stephanie smiled mysteriously, "I have a surprise for you both. Get dressed and meet me downstairs in an hour." They found Stephanie in the penthouse's private garden, where she had arranged an intimate family brunch. Sophia and Adrian were already there, along with Stetson, who had flown in overnight after hearing of the wedding. "Brother," Stetson stepped forward, his face solemn, "I owe you both an apology. Watching you fight for your love, seeing how it's transformed you, I understand now what I couldn't before." The brothers embraced, years of tension dissolving in the face of genuine understanding. Junie felt Sophia squeeze her hand, saw Adrian nodding with approval at this display of family healing. Over brunch, they shared stories and dreams. Sophia revealed her plans to open a photography studio, while Adrian discussed his medical research. Branson listened intently, offering support and connections with genuine interest in his new stepchildren's aspirations. "You've given me more than a wife," he told Junie privately as they watched their families mingle. "You've given me a whole new understanding of what matters in life." Later that afternoon, Junie found herself in her studio space within the penthouse, working on a new painting. This one captured not just their love story, but the blending of their families. Stephanie's wisdom, Stetson's redemption, her children's acceptance. Branson appeared behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Beautiful," he murmured, studying the canvas. "Just like everything you create." "I'm not just painting our past anymore," Junie leaned back against him. "I'm painting our future." His hands drifted to rest low on her stomach, an unconsciously protective gesture that made her heart skip. She wasn't ready to share her suspicions yet, but soon. Then it will be a masterpiece. He kissed her neck softly, "Because we're creating it together." The rest of the day flowed with a natural rhythm as they settled into their new reality. Stephanie and Sophia collaborated on plans to showcase Junie's art in the Nash family's charitable foundation. Stetson and Adrian discovered a shared interest in medical technology, leading to animated discussions about potential innovations. As evening approached, they gathered for a family dinner, not out of obligation or tradition, but from genuine desire to be together. Junie watched Branson interact with her children, saw how naturally he fell into the role of stepfather. "You're good for him," Stephanie said quietly, joining Junie by the window. "I've never seen him so at peace, so complete." "He completes me too," Junie replied, watching as Branson laughed at something Sophia said. "We make each other better, stronger." After dinner, as their family dispersed with promises to meet again soon, Junie and Branson retreated to their private terrace. The city sparkled below them, but they had eyes only for each other. "Thank you," Branson murmured, pulling her close. "For what?" "For giving me everything I never knew I needed. A love that defies explanation, a family that accepts me, a future filled with possibilities." Junie kissed him tenderly. "Thank you for showing me that love doesn't have to mean losing yourself, that it can mean finding parts of yourself you never knew existed." They held each other under the stars, surrounded by the love they had created, not just between them, but radiating outward to touch and heal their entire family. This was what true love did, Junie realized. It didn't just unite two hearts, it created ripples of healing and joy that transformed everyone it touched. Their story had begun with a chance encounter, but it had grown into something far more profound, a testament to the power of real, unconditional love. As if reading her thoughts, Branson whispered against her hair, "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" Junie smiled, thinking of the secret joy growing within her. "Yes, my love, our greatest chapters are still to come." Their kiss was sweet with promise, sealed with the certainty that whatever the future held, they would face it together, not just as husband and wife, but as the center of a family united by love, understanding, and the courage to believe in second chances. Chapter 12. Perfect Love. The sunrise painted golden streaks across their penthouse bedroom as Junie stirred in Branson's arms. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, a rhythm that had become her favorite sound in the world. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, pulling her closer. His hand drifted to her stomach, where the tiniest curve was just beginning to show. Junie intertwined her fingers with his. "I think it's time to tell everyone." They had kept their joyful secret for 3 weeks, savoring the private miracle between them. But today was special. Stephanie had arranged a family celebration at the Grand Palace Hotel in the very room where their story began. Room 1524, Branson smiled against her hair, where one wrong turn changed everything. "The right turn," Junie corrected, turning to kiss him softly. "The exactly right turn, at exactly the right moment." Later that evening, they stood together in the transformed hotel room. The bed where they first connected had been replaced by elegant tables. Family photographs lined the walls, their impromptu wedding, Junie's children embracing Branson, Stephanie beaming at them both. Junie wore a flowing dress in deep burgundy, the same color she'd worn that first night. Branson couldn't take his eyes off her, seeing both the woman who had enchanted him then and the wife who completed him now. Their families arrived together. Stephanie escorting Junie's mother, Sophia and Adrian chatting warmly with Stetson, the room filled with the sound of genuine love and laughter. "Everyone," Branson's voice commanded attention naturally, "Junie and I have something to share." Junie's heart swelled as she watched their loved ones' faces transform with joy at their announcement. Sophia burst into happy tears, while Adrian hugged his mother tight. Stephanie simply smiled, as if she had known all along. "A baby," Stetson grinned, clapping his brother on the back. The next generation of Nash, born from the greatest love story our family has ever known. Melissa's father, who had become a surprising ally after their wedding, raised his glass. To love, that transforms everything it touches. Uni felt Branson's arms wrap around her from behind, his presence strong and protective. "To think," he whispered in her ear, "none of this would have happened if you hadn't had too much champagne that night." She turned in his embrace, seeing all their tomorrows in his eyes. "I think it would have happened anyway. Some loves are simply meant to be." Their kiss was sweet with promise, witnessed by the people they loved most. When they parted, Branson kept her close as he addressed their family. "1 year ago, I thought success meant power, control, and perfect plans. Then this extraordinary woman stumbled into my room and showed me what real wealth looks like." His voice roughened with emotion. "It looks like family healing, like children learning to trust again, like love that grows stronger with every challenge." Uni touched his face tenderly. "You showed me that loving deeply doesn't mean losing yourself. It means finding the perfect partner to grow with, to build with, to share every adventure." Stephanie stepped forward, tears shining in her eyes. "In all my years, I've never seen a love like yours. It's the kind poets write about, the kind that changes not just two hearts, but everyone around them." As if on cue, soft music began to play, the same jazz song that had been playing in the hotel bar the night they met. Branson swept Junie into his arms, leading her in a dance that felt as natural as breathing. Their family watched with joy as they moved together, two souls perfectly in sync. Junie's children smiled at the love shining in their mother's eyes. Stetson saw the peace his brother had finally found. Stephanie witnessed the legacy of true love continuing through generations. Later that night, alone in their penthouse, Junie and Branson stood on their terrace under the stars. His hands cradled her slight bump as she leaned back against his chest. "Happy?" he asked softly. Junie turned to face him, her eyes luminous with love. "Beyond words. You've given me everything. Love that lets me be myself, family that supports us both, and now this precious gift growing inside me. You gave me even more." Branson's voice was rough with emotion. "You gave me back my heart, my soul, my ability to love. You showed me what real happiness feels like." Their kiss was tender, yet passionate, sweet yet fierce, just like their love. When they parted, both breathing heavily, Junie saw their entire future in Branson's eyes. "I love you," she whispered against his lips, "not just for who you are, but for who I am when I'm with you." "I love you," he responded, holding her close. "For every moment we've shared, every challenge we've faced, every joy still to come." The city sparkled below them as they held each other, two hearts that had found their perfect match. Their story had begun with a chance encounter, grown through trust and understanding, and blossomed into the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. Now they stood at the beginning of their greatest adventure, creating a family, building a future, writing new chapters in their endless love story. Because that's what real love does. It doesn't end with happily ever after. It keeps growing, evolving, discovering new depths of joy with each passing day. Junie and Branson had found something rare and precious, a love that made them both stronger, better, more truly themselves. A love that had healed families, bridged worlds, and created miracles. A perfect love.